tonight what I'm going to teach about is what I believe versus what I experience. So in other words, and I'll share my story and kind of fill in what I mean by that, okay? Because they're two different things. I guess they have title pages that show it. So I was born in East Texas, Lufkin, Texas, and my earliest memories were us on a lake house. Had a beautiful home, big yard. Oh my gosh, and I loved to play. I loved to go outside. Me and my sister played and played and played. Had a loving father and a loving mom, still do. Love my mom dearly. I lost my father back in 2005. But there were struggles in the home, right? But it was a good family home, and we traveled on vacations here and there. But their marriage was hard, and they faced difficulties, okay? So that caused different dynamics in the house sometime. One day, I don't remember it exactly, but all of a sudden, it's time to move. That house that I loved, that I grew up in, that was my belonging place, it was time to leave, and it was just like that. And that started a series of, I think, 7 moves in 6 different schools up through the end of 4th grade. So a lot of change, a lot of disruption. We learned that don't leave things in your car because your car may be gone. You learn how to take collector calls. And you learn how to get by on very little, but there would be ups and downs of this. So we would be doing well, and then we'd be doing bad. And I would get settled into maybe one place, and I'd have friends, and I would like the school. For example, I remember this in Gulf Breeze. I lived in Gulf Breeze for a little while. And one day, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you leave Gulf Breeze. You move to Pensacola, up near Cordova. And it just would shear everything I knew. My foundation would just be gone, and this would happen. So am I causing that? Something I'm doing? Am I too? It is? No, I'm stealing it, still doing it. You think I have to switch? I can if I need to. I hate having to hold a mic, but I'll do it if I need to. Just, put it up here and I'll switch in a minute. So I also noticed that I didn't feel like everybody else. I felt something was different about me. Something not good. The other kids in school seem to have it together. They're not getting taken out of the hall and beaten twice a week. So what's that about? Or they're not being called up front and shamed because they're not paying attention. And I came into agreement with this concept that something is wrong with me, something is defective. I don't know what it is, but it feels pretty bad. And because it's very shameful to be defective, I'm sure as heck not going to tell anyone. So I'm just going to hide this in my little 3-year-old heart, or whatever it was, because it started very, very early. So this honestly, this place of shame stayed with me very strong until about I don't know, 4 years ago, where even in this room here, something deep inside of me would say, you were less than everybody else in this room. Now let's keep in mind, at this point, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, I was a very successful person. It's a miracle, but my father started a safety consulting company that later started an online university, and when he passed away, I took it over at 33 and grew it very large and did very, very well. But even in that business endeavor, I always worried a lot about, is everyone pleased with how I'm doing? Are my meetings being ran super good? Is everybody engaged in my meeting? Did they think it went well? Did I stay on time? Was the agenda good? Were the topics good? And if not, man, that felt bad. I needed everyone to be pleased. And I had no room for mistakes. Everything had to be done perfect. So I would get bogged down in tasks. Oh my God. I was a terrible delegator because I could do it better. I'll just do it myself, right? I don't have time to teach everybody. So, and that led to a lot of overwhelm and stress. So So again, backing up, I remember in fourth grade, so part of fourth grade, we moved all of a sudden from Gulf Breeze to Pensacola. I dissociated that entire year. I could not tell you a thing that teacher taught every day. So thank goodness for that teacher, though. She would send home with notes and a stack of about 6 books, and that was my afternoon. Every afternoon, studying until I went to bed. Because that last move, something broke, something shifted in me that it just disrupted my foundation. So that distraction and dissociation made me further know I'm defective. Something's wrong. So around 9th grade, I'm doing better. I'm starting to do better in school then. I mean, probably 8th grade. I became a true born-again Christian, filled with the Holy Spirit, and man, I was on fire for the Lord. I lived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi at this point, so that was where I started the second half of 4th grade. J.P. Wilson was my youth pastor. If you know J.P., he's a pastor of Summit Church here in Foley, which is kind of cool. And we had this amazing youth group. So I was on fire for God. My sister took me and my friends to every youth event. But something in me still wasn't experiencing all God had to offer. Something in me said I was still shameful. And I struggled still a lot of areas. Not near as bad. I prayed to God every day, Lord, give me wisdom and knowledge, because I knew I've got to have some help or I'm not going to make it. So then sometimes while my faith helped me greatly, it completely changed my life. And I give God credit for all that I've achieved, to be honest, completely. I would read scriptures like 2 Corinthians 5:17, where I'm supposed to be a new creation and all things passed away, all old things passed away. And I would think, I don't feel it. Part of me at least doesn't feel it. Part of me does maybe, but part of me feels still very defective and wrong. And what does that mean about me? Why is this not working? Something's up with me. So that's what I want to talk about tonight, okay? So let's go to the first slide. One's Romans 7:23. And Paul says, I see another law at work in the members of my body, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within my members. So he's experiencing one thing in his body, his emotions, his heart, stuff driving him, feelings driving him, versus what he's thinking and wanting to do. Let's go to the next slide. And this is Paul, someone we very much look up to and admire, right? So let's break it down a little bit. So the phrase, another law in my members. So Paul sees a principle or law in his body or flesh, a force driving him towards sin, okay? Waging war against the law of my mind. So the sin principle fights against his renewed, God-honoring desire. His mind wants to obey God. Now, in my example, I wasn't fighting against some stereotypical sin desire to go out and let's say get drunk, or chase girls or whatever. That wasn't the problem. But in my body, I was warring against shame. This belief that I was not enough and something was wrong. Now, that doesn't align with God's word at all, does it? Not even close. Next part, making me captive to the law of sin. He feels enslaved by the sin nature that lives in his body, even though his mind wants to do right. Okay, so we're talking about behaviors, right? We're talking about behaviors, feelings, actions, emotions drive behaviors. So we're talking about, I know one thing, but I'm feeling and behaving a different way. Okay, and that's what Paul's describing. Very much describes what I was kind of going through. Like, I'm believing what I'm reading. I know who God is, and I know he loves me. On the other side, part of me is not getting there whatsoever. And I don't feel it, and I'm not experiencing it. So let's start going into why a little bit. So we can go next slide. So insecure attachment and sin in the flesh. Attachment is just a good way to explain. It's based on research and long ago. It's very, very well done. but they took the time to study kids, study children, in their environment and their emotional experience, and then study how that played out in adulthood. So attachment puts into words what a child experienced and how is that going to affect them as an adult. That's all it's doing. Secure attachment, you can look at it, very well describes, in my opinion, and others, what God intended and how he made us and how we can love well. So attachment simply puts it into words. It's nothing new or different or some philosophy. It's just putting into words what we may have experienced and now the behaviors and feelings and emotions we experience because of that, okay? So let's read this. So children are designed to attach to their caregivers in trust and safety. But if a parent is emotionally unavailable, provides inconsistent care, is overly controlling or abusive, the child's attachment system becomes disordered. And I wish I'd used a different word there. I don't like that word. But anyway, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. So let's talk about that for just a minute. For one, I had loving parents. I love them still dearly, and I hate my father passed away early in my life. But our parents only have the paradigm of how they were loved, right? And their parents, our grandparents, only have their paradigm of how they were loved. So when we talk about sin patterns passing down from generation to generation, it's one thing we're talking about. I only know how to love based on what I've seen. And based on how I've been loved, even is going to affect how I can relate to God, because that's my paradigm of how love works, okay? So your parents, I'm not saying my parents were bad whatsoever. Again, I love them dearly, they're great parents. But they only did the best they could do, right? And what they knew. Now, some of you who I know have grew up in homes who had maybe very abusive situation. That's a whole other ballgame, which creates a lot of wounds and pain. But some of you, maybe like me, had good parents, and you'll be in this paradigm. Well, wait a minute. If I had good parents, then what's wrong with me then? I can't reconcile the both. It has to be either or. And the truth is, it can be both and. I can have great parents who I love dearly, and I can also have emotional wounds because maybe there were some needs in my life that weren't met. God-given needs that I needed to be met as a vulnerable child that just weren't able to be met. You take my example, I was a workaholic. I had to strive and prove, and I remember I couldn't let nobody down, right? I had to keep everybody pleased. Well, I would even come home late and still keep working. So I did my sweet, dear wife horrible, and definitely did not meet all of her needs, and did not meet the needs of my kids. Some people don't have a choice to work. Some people are dealing with all kinds of things like Krista talked about last Sunday. So lots of different things can happen that cause unmet needs. So we can, again, have a great home and loving parents and unmet needs and wounds because of it, okay? So that last paragraph, these experiences wire the nervous system for hypervigilance, fear, anxiety, and survival behaviors. Hypervigilance means my nervous system is attuned to monitor the room and the people I'm with. I'm wired to make sure everybody's okay, and as soon as someone's not, I'm feeling it, and I'm trying to keep myself safe. Happens to a lot of people. Fear, gosh, okay, so taking my story, I was ate up with fear. And tons of anxiety in work, tons of anxiety in school. Just trying to not be noticed, don't be seen, because if I get seen, then maybe they'll know the truth about me. Anxiety about doing decent in school. Anxiety about relationships, friends, everything. My system kind of got wired in a way to stay in a place of anxiety and stress. Let's go to the next slide. So this leaves us vulnerable to disordered desires such as craving validation, control, avoidance, or escape. I definitely needed some validation. I needed others to approve of me. So I didn't approve of myself, right? So if I don't approve of myself, what am I going to do? I've got to make sure that I do something to overcome that. One of those things is perform well and be a perfectionist, right? The other is, I'm going to keep you happy with me as much as possible. That means I'm doing okay. That means maybe I have some self-worth. You're happy and I'm performing well. So that's part of what validation is about. Control. So control can be a means just to simply keep myself safe because the unknown is a little too scary and is not safe. And I don't have any place for that. I need to control my surroundings, my environment as much as I can to stay safe. Because I don't trust. Maybe I don't, because maybe I'm wired that way. Also, what is it? Control, avoidance, or escape. So in other words, we can avoid emotions, we can avoid what we're feeling, we can avoid situations, or we can dissociate and just get out of it as much as possible. Also causes unconscious beliefs. I am not lovable. I have to earn worth or I'll be abandoned. So abandoned doesn't just mean physically abandoned, it can also mean emotionally abandoned. So deep in me, so that's what it's describing, deep in me or in a person, or this belief of I'm not lovable, okay, so something's wrong, right? Something's defective, something in me is not good enough and is not worthy of love. Or, and now like I mentioned, I have to earn worth. So because I'm not lovable, I've got to earn it, prove myself, I've got to strive. Or, I'm going to end up alone. Okay? Maybe I'm going to end up alone with how I feel. So most kids, or lots of people I work with or meet with, experience the situation where in childhood I had strong, painful, overwhelming emotions and no one was there to help me process them. I was alone with it. That's a very painful place. A lot of men will deal with the issue of they can't sit still. They cannot not be busy. I have to be watching something. The reason is because as soon as my mind becomes aware of itself, it brings back the feeling of being alone with how I felt. And boom, I got to stay busy. I got to distract myself right away. So none of this stuff I've told you so far is by choice. This is just happening in some of us. Okay? So where am I going with this? I'm going to keep going, but remember, I'm believing in the Word. I love the Lord with all my heart, but I'm experiencing a lot of what I'm reading to you. Now, has anybody else experienced any of the things I've read so far at all? Anybody whatsoever? Or is it just, okay, look at that. Great, thank you. That gives me encouragement that I'm not alone. Okay. These beliefs often drive flesh patterns, like Paul talked about. That was his description, flesh patterns of self-reliance, manipulation, isolation, or people-pleasing. Let's talk about self-reliance for just a minute. So back to attachment. Stereotypical is a lot of men will be avoidant attachments. A lot of women will be anxious. I'm actually more leaning toward the anxious side. So why are a lot of men avoidant? What does that mean? It means that if you're raised in an environment where emotions are more so not appreciated or honored, or there's been no space made for them, but what is prioritized is independence, doing well in sports, doing well in school, and that results in a man or a person who is avoidant because they're avoidant toward how they feel. They have had to shut that off because it was never taught or honored. It was never connected with. There was no space for it. It was about doing well, performing, being independent, and self-reliant. And these guys, it's funny, these guys will grow up, a lot of us men will grow up, and then your parents will be like, man, I wish you would come home or call us more, and there's just not that emotional connection. That part has been kind of shut off. And the parents like, man, I wish my kid would call me more and interact more. A lot of times it's because they're avoidant. And that place it's all still there, it's just not connected with, but it can be reconnected with. So self-reliance, manipulation, in other words, I'm trying to manipulate a situation, isolation, or people-pleasing. Paul says, I do what I hate, which aligns with the trauma survivor's lament, Why do I keep reacting this way, even though I want to change? I try to love well, but fail. So I always meant to love my kids well and love my wife very well. But man, many times I have not. I think hopefully I got it right more times than I got it wrong. Things like a child speaking up about something they're not happy with, or maybe criticizing you and me responding quickly with the tone, or getting aggravated too quickly and easily, or annoyed, and boom, the tone of their voice changes. You think you've done nothing wrong, and boy, they pick it up. How about you have a child in distress, and instead of being able to just sit with them in it and love them there and comfort them, I go to fix it and solve it. Because I need them to not be in distress because I don't know what to do with that. Because I don't know how to handle those emotions. Haven't been taught. Wasn't maybe modeled. A lot of us guys go to fix and solve very fast. It's a common marital problem. I just want you to listen to me. Instead, here's the answer. Do 1, 2, and 3, and this will be fine. And it's not what your spouse is looking for whatsoever, right? So I have definitely a lot of times not loved well. And in studying this and learning what I have, I see why Jesus talked about how love is so important. And why it's because once you know who you are and you know who he is and how he sees you, love can begin to flow out and you see people in a whole different way. You tolerate their problems, you have compassion for them even in their messes, and you're loving more like Jesus did. All right, let's go to the next slide. So when we're talking about sin, think about that. Think about not loving well, okay? Hurting people, doing things that aren't healthy. Behaviors of self-protection, defensiveness. How about that? Oh my gosh, there's another one for me, okay? Get criticized or corrected, and while you want to take it, something in you says you've got to prove you're right. You have got to prove you're right, because if you got it wrong, it means you're bad. It means something is wrong with you. So you've got it, and you've got to show you're right, because that way she won't think I'm bad. So I've got to prove myself. Automatic, unconscious, okay? Okay, so let's go into shame a little bit. I mentioned that in my story. Ooh, man, what a big one. So toxic shame, the belief I am bad, not just I did something wrong, but deeply embeds itself in the flesh. So again, this doesn't have to come from you did anything wrong whatsoever. By most people's standards, I was a good kid. I was very compliant. I did not want to cause any trouble. But man, I was full of shame. I'm talking lower than dirt. I am worth nothing, and I need to hide it to make sure nobody sees it. Because all I am is not good, right? Okay, so it leads to compulsive striving. Maybe I'll finally be enough. Hiding or numbing behavior. Anxiety and depression. And for trauma survivors, shame becomes the core wound keeping the traumatic experience alive. So that's the crazy thing about shame. So when vulnerability gets betrayed, like take a little child is vulnerable, right? Just needs care, needs their needs met. When those needs don't get met, it gets betrayed. Or how about you're a vulnerable adult or a teen, and somehow you got betrayed or got wounded or got violated, whatever. Shame comes in when our vulnerability gets betrayed. And all of a sudden, the person feels shameful who's actually the victim, maybe. Or the person who does nothing wrong feels shame. Because maybe somehow I should have done something different. Somehow I should have controlled this situation to avoid it. Shame does not ever usually say, like in the typical parent-child dynamic where maybe your father screamed at you. I don't know. I remember spilling my drink. I would always knock over. I was so uncoordinated. I'd always knock over my glass of whatever it was, probably tea or Coke, and spill it on the table. And we had this dang table that had these 4 panes of glass. And the water or Coke would go under the glass, right? Into all these grooves. And then out there, you had to get a knife, you had to get the glass up, take the glass off. Oh my God. So sometimes my father would just go, GD, boy, what did you do? Now, and I only say this because he's passed away and he won't hear it and care. And it upset him. He's like, my God, I need dinner to be peaceful, you know? And here I'm spilling my glass and my Coke everywhere, and it's sticky and nasty. And there were, I don't guess I did well at brushing my teeth as a young kid. Maybe I was autistic, I have no idea. I've wondered about it. But anyway, I'd be sitting by him in this little truck, and I'm in the middle, right, a little Toyota, and all of a sudden he would just go, God, boy, what's wrong with your breath? God, it stinks so bad. Okay, so picture this. I am happy one moment. I'm just sitting there, I'm with my father, we're on a ride, we're going on an adventure, and boom, I am being fussed at for being bad and messing up somehow. Okay? That's a sharing of emotions and definitely produces shame. So criticism from a father or not feeling approved by a father or a mother or whatever can cause this place of shame. And shame will not tell you that you feel shame because of someone's actions. It will just say something's wrong with you. And that will change who you believe you are. And usually it happens in most people sometimes before they have memory and can recall. It came early in. So last paragraph there, last statement. The shame-driven striving mirrors the law. I'm trying to be good enough, yet always falling short. Very true. Okay, so far, I'm explaining what happens and how it causes emotional upheaval in us, okay? That's kind of where we're at. So, Romans, next slide. There we go. So, Romans 8, it offers a solution, right? It's where Paul goes next after he talks about what's going on in his members and his war. So we have what is we learn in Romans 8? No condemnation. We are not defined by our flesh or our failures. The law of the Spirit of life, the Spirit enables real transformation, and it totally does. And the Spirit of adoption, coming out of the orphan place into sonship. So God has paved the way. But many of us read it, according to me especially, in my story, intellectually I believed it, and I could quote some of it, not so good so right now, but I still felt stuck in shame in my sin cycles of hurting my family, right? So why in the heck is that all happening, right? And I kind of explained it some earlier because I had these experiences, I had my story, and it was playing out. My emotions were wired a certain way, and this wasn't changing all of it, where I was at with the Lord. Changed a lot, but not all of it, okay? So, go next slide. This disconnect can cause us as believers to feel this way. Why isn't this working for me? Maybe I'm not truly saved, or something is deeply wrong with me. That's what I would relate to the most. Something is wrong with me. Because God's word is truth, but this part I'm not feeling. So what's my problem? So these last statements kind of really hit it home, and we're going to go further into that. So knowing alone isn't enough when there's insecure attachment, trauma, and shame involved. Because the truth needs to become embodied. Have you ever noticed that you don't feel in your brain? You think in your brain, you make decisions, and you have thoughts, and your emotions do come from there, but you don't feel overwhelmed in your brain, right? Really. You'll feel it in your body. You'll feel anxiety in your body. You're not so much in your head, but you will feel it through your body. It's all connected. Your nervous system's all connected. This is why a lot of people even experience a lot of illness because of the state of their emotional health. Could be nothing with anything physical whatsoever. So, healing often requires more than cognitive agreement. So I agreed with what I read. in my reason and logic. But I didn't integrate it, and I didn't go through repair, and I sure wasn't aware of whether my truth was different than God's truth. So let me read that statement straight through. It requires emotional integration, repair, and awareness of where your truth is different than God's. So I really wasn't aware. I knew I was shameful and something was wrong with me, but that was almost an unconscious thing. I mean, a little more than unconscious. But I never was aware that, wait a minute, I'm believing something about myself that's totally not aligned with what God says. I never thought crossed my mind. Okay? So the truth has to become embodied. In other words, yeah, part of my mind believes it, part of me does not. That's why there's a disconnect. God made your brain very complex in your body and your nervous system. It's not just one part, okay? There's parts that control reason and logic, and there's multiple parts that deal with emotions, and parts that bring it all together. So let's go to the next slide. Let's kind of go over this a little bit more. So Romans 8, truth. There's no condemnation. But my experience, or yours might be, deep shame still says, I'm bad, I'm broken, I'm disqualified. The Spirit of life has set you free, but trauma has conditioned the body to live in fear and not freedom. You have received the spirit of adoption, but if you've never experienced saved parental love, adoption may feel abstract and not real. Or maybe you experienced love, but you never felt totally accepted and unconditionally loved. Maybe you felt your love was conditioned on your behavior. Sometimes you get the message you weren't quite lovable, and sometimes you were. Then you're going to have your body, parts of your brain are going to have a harder time accepting or understanding the paradigm of sonship and being fully loved, fully accepted just because of who you are. Just because you exist and God created you. You read it, a part of you will say, that I don't feel it. Part of my body is rejecting it for some reason. Well, I can't have shame and I'm in sonship in the same place, kind of. My heart is not going to hold both. Okay? Nothing can separate us from the love of God. From God's love, but you feel emotionally disconnected or unworthy of love. If you're avoidant or your emotions were not honored much and you went to the avoidance side of things, you may go, man, why do I never feel God's presence? Well, you never had a chance to connect with your emotions very well, period, and understand those. You never had the chance to describe how you felt and someone worked you through that. So feeling God's presence is going to be a little bit harder until those things are healed and worked through. Okay. Joanna, can I take over your water? So, thank you. All right, we can go to the next slide, Josh. So the word is truth, but what does my heart believe? So I kind of got ahead of myself, right? But that's okay. I'm just kind of going with what I'm feeling and speaking it, and the slide is, we all catch up in a moment. So there are beliefs deep within us that do not align with the Word of God. Okay, we kind of mentioned that. When we come into agreement with a lie or accusation, it becomes our truth. And that's a huge statement right there. This is very, very important. When as kids or whenever, as a child ever, when you agree with I am not enough, that becomes your truth. And the rest of your life is affected by it until you come out of that lie. There is an agreement in you that this is truth. I am not enough. I am not lovable. Maybe I'm bad or I'm unworthy. Can I tell you how common it is? You see it all the time. We have to become aware of what we've agreed with. And we have to renounce it and come out of it. There's a spiritual component to it, and there's a physical, mental component to it. My truth versus God's truth. I am shameful versus I am loved. We are often unaware of what we have come into agreement with. Yes. So, in my case, I'd come into agreement with my self-worth. Well, one, I don't have any self-worth. I am shameful, so I will perform and I will worry and I will make sure I please others. My step forth will equal performance and what others think of me. Okay, let's talk about the next one. So implicit memory. So I talked about earlier how God didn't make our mind just this one part. He made it very complex. And there's some great Christian authors that have done some wonderful books on shame and how our mind works, and it's really powerful. But an implicit memory is not going to be the only reason probably that what you believe and know isn't the same as what you experience and feel, but it's a big one. So let's explain it for a minute. Implicit memory circuits carry neurological traces of infancy and of childhood experiences. Encoded in them is the emotional content of those experiences, but not necessarily the details of the events themselves. So part of your brain has memories of everything from your childhood. I think they even say it starts in the womb, okay? Your body remembers everything you have went through. So if at 1 year old, you were put in daycare and had some horrible experience, your body will remember it, okay? You can't recall it whatsoever. Let's just say when you're from 1 to 3 somewhere, you experience bad rejection. And then today, you say something and they basically don't accept it and let you know that was wrong, or they don't agree with how you feel. Or maybe more so, they just feel like reject you and, hey, I don't really want to hang out or talk to you anymore. Or someone breaks up with you or whatever. That can completely, immediately recall the trauma, that experience when you were 1 to 3. Okay, and then we call it a trigger. So I have the great benefit of dealing with a good many triggers, and I bet many of you do as well. Triggers are when you have a strong emotion that's beyond what the situation warrants. And it's immediate, like that need to defend I talked about. Boom, it's immediate. Or that feeling of if Joanna telling me how I'm getting it wrong and I just want to run out of the room, okay, because I want to flee, fight or flight. It's like a shame train is running me over and I can't hardly take it. Let's keep going with this. No conscious awareness is necessary for these memories to be triggered. So explicit memory is where you recall who your third grade teacher was, and you can feel it and sense it. I'm recalling a memory. Implicit is just there, and it's automatic and it consumes your body. So no conscious awareness is necessary. Implicit memory is responsible for much of our behavior. So we have these recorded memories that we can't even recall, and they're driving our behavior. And we don't know why. We don't know why we behave the way we do, why we feel the way we do, but we sure as heck know we feel it. And we end up kind of becoming one with it. How I feel is truth, and it's me, and I've got to react to it. So when we experience feelings that overwhelm us, we are likely experiencing implicit memory, not reacting to something in the present. And this is what can cause us to cope, to numb out. This is what causes people to drink, to get to do substance abuse. Who knows what else? Well, all sorts of things, right? Inappropriate content, whatever it might be that helps numbs out the pain and why it's there. All right, so we're going to wrap up with 2. How am I doing on time, by the way? Oh, I need to wrap up, don't I? Okay, well, I packed a lot in the last, I've got 3 more to go. No, 2. Okay, we're going to make it, guys, okay? But there's a lot in these, all right? And I'm going to drive it home in all of this. Next one. All right, so I want to leave you with some good hope and a journey of healing, okay? We have to become aware of our story and how it impacted us. Not to be a victim, but we have a story. Each of you has a story, and that story is a cause and effect thing, right? What happened is causing things in how you feel and in how you behave and how you think. So we become aware that you have a story that impacted you and the painful emotions of the past are triggered in the present. And I would encourage you to learn your attachment style or learn from reading attachment language, what holds true to you. It's just giving you verbiage of, wow, yeah, I experienced that, and for the first time maybe in my life, there's a statement that describes how I feel. And it's very helpful. It's moving you into awareness, okay? Next one. So instead of self-condemnation, move to compassionate curiosity as to why we feel the way we do. And recognize that the observant you is separate from your feelings. Okay, so that's a big one. I think this is huge in beginning people's journey. So in these next two relate. When I ask a lot of people, what's your opinion of yourself? And I have to get them past their reason and logic. I want to know what your heart and your gut says. What does your heart say about you? Most of the time, it's an unfavorable opinion. It's a condemning opinion. It is, I don't like myself. I am this and that. I'm bad. I am shameful. I get it wrong all the time. And this will go all the way back to childhood. And the reason behind it usually always is my needs were not met as a child. I felt shame, and I come to false beliefs about myself. Because this is unconscious, but it's a lot easier for the child to believe that they're the problem. Because if I am the problem, I can control me, and I can change, and I can strive, and I can perform, and I can get you to like me. If the problem's not me, I can't control it, and I can't make my little world safe. So we take on the blame and the self-blame and the shame. So people end up under condemnation. Well, and then we're stuck in this place. And we cannot experience God's truth because we are condemning ourselves and believing a lie about who we are. So what's this statement about? Instead of condemning yourself, move into, especially when you behave or feel something you don't like. And you make a statement you don't like, or you do something, you react, God, what's wrong with me? Instead of being in condemnation, to move to compassionate curiosity as to why you feel the way you do. Why are you feeling those feelings? Did they just come out of thin air? Huh? No. You feel it because there's a reason. Something happened. What's it revealing in your story? Why are you feeling that? Where did you first feel that? Lord God, show me why I am feeling this and what's it really about. So let's go to the next. So yeah, that second part, you can separate yourself in a way. Like God made your brain multiple parts. So we can witness and label what we feel. Ooh, I feel anxious right now. I feel defensive right now. I feel shame. I feel like I might be abandoned or I'm not enough in this relationship. We can witness that. We can label it in our body, what we're feeling, and we can name it. Not just be reacting to it, which we're going to go into that in just a second more. All right, so next statement. Self-acceptance doesn't mean self-admiration. So you don't have to love all those feelings because some of them aren't great, right? And they resulted in bad or inappropriate behavior, right? I hurt someone's feelings. Because of my emotions, I hurt someone. Maybe I pulled back. They said something, I pulled away and shut down. Pushed them all away, right? So I'm not handling situations well. Okay, so we're not going to love that, are we? But we did it and we felt it, right? So self-acceptance doesn't mean we love all of that, but we have tolerance for all of our emotions, including those that are uncomfortable, including those we don't like. All right? So Jesus accepts us, right? Accepts us fully in all of our mess and all of our struggles. So and what's good with this statement is it's getting out of that place that if you don't have to, because we think, okay, for me to love myself, I got to love everything about me and just think it's great. Well, it's not. Man, I got some bad places, right, that just aren't quite in line. But if I accept that I've got a story that's playing out, but I'm bringing God into it and I'm on a journey of healing, so I'm going to accept myself that I'm not bad, that God loves me on this journey of sanctification, and I'm going to have tolerance for what I'm feeling and things I don't like, and I'm going to bring God into those things and ask him the truth about what that's about, okay? Because if we're in unacceptance, let me tell you what, if you're in unacceptance of yourself, or you're in self-rejection, self-condemnation, you're not going to get any further on your journey. I mean, there's part of you that is stuck there. So most people live their whole lives viewing their emotions as an automatic, uncontrollable response rather than as information. Learn to witness and label your emotions and bring them before the Lord. So I talked about that some earlier. So when you get triggered, the likelihood is you are going to have an automatic response. The more you become aware of how you feel, the more you can realize, whoa, I am having a strong feeling right now, and I'm about to say something I shouldn't or react in a way I shouldn't. I need a moment to process what's going on inside of me, okay? Emotions don't have to be automatic and uncontrollable responses. We can become aware and get to a place where we see them, we understand what we're feeling, we unpack it before the Lord, versus wounding someone. In my case, a lot of times, and even very recent, I didn't catch it soon enough. I was triggered, and I did respond not in a great way. Got offended, and spoke out in offense. But I can at least go back. I can go back and go, okay, I wasn't good. What happened? Lord, join me in this and show me what this is about. Let's get down to the bottom of this. And why is it happening? And how does it relate to my story? Okay? That's a very freeing place, though, to know we're not trapped in what we feel. We don't have to be one with what we feel. So validate your feelings without obeying them. Is that the end of this part? So that's, let me unpack that a second. And I know I'm going to wrap up pretty quick here. I only have one more little slide. I had the issue of, because my triggers and my emotions have led me astray or have caused upheaval and weren't good, I no longer trust anything I feel. Because what I feel is going to be inherently wrong. And that's a place of self-abandonment. So you go to this extreme because too many times my emotions have led me astray. I'm now, one, going to invalidate them, and I'm going to abandon myself and not trust anything. If you ever deal with a situation where you're always not trusting your decision and you're second-guessing it, and you're always needing to ask other people over and over and get multiple opinions, that's probably related to that. Because you don't trust how you think and how you feel. And yeah, those emotions did leave you astray, but that didn't mean you were supposed to abandon yourself and all your instincts and all your feelings when we go too far. On the other flip side, we can go into emotional reasoning where what I feel is true. Joanna said this. That was very hurtful, and she disregarded me, and boom, I'm going to react. Right? Well, no. My emotions were telling me something that wasn't true about that moment. It was about my story and about my past. Okay? So we don't need to obey them or assume their truth about the moment, but we do need to validate we feel what we feel. Because if we don't, how are we going to ask God to step into this and heal what this is about? Okay. Last one. This is a very powerful thing you can do on your own time with the Lord. A lot of your healing journey can happen with you and God. It doesn't require a session with someone. I totally promote that. I love to do that. But this is something you can do on your own. One, begin to pray and ask the Lord, God, I want to understand my story. I want you to show me things that happened that I need to bring before you, and that your truth needs to come in. Places in me, Lord, that you have never been or allowed into because I haven't even tried to go there. But they're impacting my life today and my walk with you. And God will show you things, okay? So what you do is you write out what happened. What happened? What was the situation? What was the event? What did I feel because of what happened? Well, so maybe Dad rejected you or expressed his disapproval, and you felt shame. So I'm going to write it out. I'm going to write it in a journal before the Lord. Okay, God, this is what happened. This is what I felt. And what did you believe because of what you felt? Well, I felt shame, and that led me to believe I was defective. I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough to maybe please my father, right? Or I wasn't enough to get my mom's attention and her love. I'm being hypothetical. This is not necessarily my experience, but I'm giving you examples that are very common. What did you believe about you because of what you felt? And how did you react and change? Well, I felt I was shameful. So like my story here, I felt because I believed something was wrong with me, I was very shy, I was very withdrawn, and I didn't take a lot of risks. Forget taking on sports. No way, Jose. That will put me in exposure. I will be seen, and my shame will be revealed to the whole world. Don't get in front of people either. I talked my 9th grade teacher out of giving a presentation. I couldn't handle it. It overwhelmed me and terrified me. And had she made me do it, I'd be up there going, oh, look at my name is Robert. I'm here today to talk about chemistry, you know. It would have been bad. So thank God she let me out. It was a great thing. But later I had to deal with that and overcome it. So anyway, I reacted a lot. It changed, my shame changed my life and how I felt about being and how I went about my life. And God, what is your truth? What is the truth about this? What is the truth about me? And God will show you. He will show you his love. And sometimes that pen will just start going. You'll be like, oh my God, I wrote that all down. Where did that even come from? What is God's truth about their situation? So in concluding it, we don't choose the circumstances that shape us. So we're not bad. We're not defective. We're not unworthy. But we did have things happen that shaped us. And what the enemy's plan is there is, I will cause you to be sinned against, but you believe you're the problem and you're the one in the wrong. You're defective. So I'm going to cause you to be sinned against. I'm going to cause this sin to pass down, sin against you, and then you take ownership of you're the problem. And then never walk out in who as God says you are, and never walk out your purpose and what he has for you. So healing is not for the sake of healing, by the way. Knowing who you are, thinking God even is not just for that purpose. It's for you to walk out what he has for you. And then for you to know, knowing who you are, God is huge. I think that's probably the two most important things of reaching good healing. Know who I truly am. Because if I know who I truly am and I'm fully accepted, I will carry out and walk out what God has for me. Like, I do things today I would never do before. Robert from 5 years ago would not be up here talking to you. Now, I'd speak in front of 1,000 people at graduation or multiple, or 150 people at CSU's leadership meetings. I would not have touched being in this church, though, in front of you. No way. I sure wouldn't have be the leader of a men's ministry, and coordinate that for Brodom. No way would I have ever done it, because I'm not enough and I'm too shameful. And I have nothing to offer these guys. That was the Robert before. So, we do not choose the circumstances that shape us, but we can take responsibility now to become aware, awake, and to come before the Lord for healing and true agreement with who he says we are. If you don't know what's going on in you, and you're not aware of what's happening in you and what you believe, how how are you going to ever take that before the Lord or bring him into it? You will just stay where part of you is in disagreement with what God says.